Hello and welcome along to this mini UCAS International podcast with me, Robbie James, and in today's episode we are talking all about discovering the UK. Now, of course, there is a full-length episode available in the UCAS International podcast feed. This, though, is more from the perspective of if you are looking to support someone who is thinking of coming and studying in the UK. We're going to do it with my two wonderful guests. Welcome to Simon Lewis, University Advisor at American School London. Nice to have you on, Simon. And also Regional Manager from the University of Cambridge, Emily Ferris. Welcome to you both. Nice to have you on.
Thank you.
Discovering the UK then. We've got plenty to offer, but what sort of goes to the top of the list, Simon? Let's start with you. When you are talking to maybe parents or guardians or people who are thinking of coming and studying in the UK, what's that sort of one selling point you give about the UK?
I think there's so much variety in terms of the different regions. I mean, a lot of international parents might start with London as the capital, but actually we've got so many different great universities all over the country, from up in Newcastle, Liverpool, down the south coast, Sussex, and everywhere in between. So I think top of mind for me is like just the sheer variety of cities and universities that are in the UK. Campuses as well, different. Some are within the cities, some are outside of cities. So there's a lot of variety there for students and their parents and guardians to explore.
And not just in terms of the geography, but also like culturally, Emily, right? There's a lot to offer.
Absolutely, and that will really depend on whether it's a city campus or a campus university, where it is in the UK, kind of demographics of that area, size, all of this should be taken into account when thinking about university choices. The UK is definitely somewhere where there's a huge variety in types of university, whether, as I mentioned, they're city or campus, or they have a very broad subject offer, or they're more specialised, rather than kind of being somewhere where you go to a very similar type of campus, but perhaps in different parts of the country. It really will differ depending which university you're looking at.
So what is, I suppose it's a bit of a broad question, Simon, but you must get asked often, what's it like studying in the UK? What should I expect? What's the top of your list for those answers?
I think what international parents and guardians have to understand in particular is that students are treated like adults in the UK, that they are responsible for their own learning, that they have to structure a lot of their time. They may not have, if they're in a humanities class, for example, they might not have a huge number of contact hours per week, but they're expected to structure the rest of their week around studying. So I think it really suits a kind of student who has that kind of independence of thought and knows how to kind of organise their time effectively.
So how do you therefore, Emily, sort of teach them that or try and help them to prepare for that?
Really encouraging independent thinking about their subject in class, perhaps at home asking them what they learnt, but what they're thinking about beyond what they've learnt at school that week, that day. Are they engaging with any material outside of the classroom that they might want to tell you about? And forming their own ideas and opinions, perhaps engaging with their subject in the media or the news and encouraging conversations around that as well that kind of go beyond the classroom, because that's really the kind of conversations they'll be having in a university seminar.
Now, given this is the UCAS International podcast, it may not be possible, as it is for domestic students in the UK, to go and enjoy an open day, have a walk around the campus. So what advice do you give, Emily, to people about how they can discover the UK without coming to the UK first up? Because it can be an expensive flight to make.
Yes, absolutely. So some universities, like the university I work at, we have a virtual tour, and this is a really fantastic way of looking at all of the facilities, student facilities, as well as the city. That could actually be something, even if you are considering a visit, doing that first, because you might look online and think, oh, that's not for me, we're not going to make the journey, or vice versa, you definitely do want to use that expense and make the journey. Or virtual open days as well, social media, speaking to students online via university platforms if you can. This all gives you a really good image of a university before you make the decision to travel and see it in person.
What about from sort of maybe the more academic side, or also just the cultural side of the, not necessarily on the campus or in the city, but the country that they may be studying in as a whole?
So, it's hard sometimes to kind of take a step back and kind of think about what the UK culture is like. But I would say British people are friendly.
We're friendly people, aren't we?
Are.
We're all friendly here. We'll be nice to you. Yeah.
Sociable. There's, for some people, the pub is a big centre for student life. Obviously, not necessarily for all cultures, but that is something that is important to British life. And it's a place really to interact with people and, make friends and socialise. I think food is actually increasingly a really big part of British culture, and if you go down to around to different regions in the UK, you'll have different regional specialities in terms of food, great restaurants, and so on. So, lots really to explore. But the UK is really diverse in terms of you've got your coastal towns, you've got places in close to the mountains, and so you can have a look at the kind of area around the campus to see what kind of activities are on offer. That's a really good way of kind of thinking about what kind of places you might want to study as well.
Should we also, I suppose, be a little cautious, because there may be people watching or listening to this who have been to the UK before, and so they think, I've got some good advice to give to whoever it is who's maybe thinking about coming and studying here. However, I'm going to guess things change. So if you came here 20 years ago, you may have gone to a different part of the country, but also countries change, and we're quite a quickly evolving country, Emily, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm aware some people listening to this may be from a much bigger country than the ones in the UK, so you might think you've explored quite a lot of it. But as we've mentioned, the different parts of the UK really do differ from one another. The kinds of activities that you'll be doing outside of academics can really change depending on whether you're in a big city or a very small coastal town. I'm sure lots of people have seen images of London, for example, as well. So you might think you have a really good idea of London, but actually other parts of the UK are so different to that. It's really good to do your kind of exploratory work.
Yeah, worth saying. London and, say, St Andrews, just slightly different places, okay? Yeah. Not everywhere is quite like London. If people can come and visit in the UK, that's great news before they come and study here. What should they do? Is it a place to come and travel around the country? Would you advise going and trying different restaurants? Anything in particular you'd say do or don't focus on?
So if you're coming to visit the UK, you might be stopping off at a few different universities. I wouldn't just go to the university itself, but get a sense of the community around the university, perhaps. Definitely do a bit of sightseeing. Have a look at different restaurants and offer all the things that you as a student might do while you're at the university. I'll try and get a flavour of all of those things before you kind of commit to a particular institution.
And how can people like you help as well? So I'm going to guess parents, students, whoever it might be, can come to people like you and get some advice, and how can you help them on their decision-making process?
We will usually give some tips on perhaps when would be the best time to come, and making it really clear that if you don't come on an open day, for example, just kind of managing expectations of what you're likely to see around the city or the university campus, offering the best sort of advice for what you as a family want to get out of your visit. If you really want to have a taster lecture, for example, then yes, you should come to an open day. If you just want a feel for the city, then people like me can advise you on things to do, just to give you a really good idea of the kind of cultural environment of that place as well.
And you're nice people. You're welcome, though, won't you? You'll be
Absolutely.
Nice.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, look at them. They've got nice faces, haven't they? Nice. Good stuff. All right, if there's one piece of advice, but just before we go, one piece of advice, Simon, you would give to people from a support perspective, if you were looking to support someone thinking about coming and studying in the UK, what would you say is the most important thing that they need to remember in terms of the UK as a whole?
I think for me it would be encouraging their sort of independence, because the student experience is quite independent. So kind of being that scaffolding presence behind them, helping to support them explore all of the different options, and really being somebody that they can turn to for advice, but also look for their responses to particular cities and institutions and see what they like, and maybe affirm their reactions rather than having too many preconceived notions before you set foot in the UK about what we have to offer.
Emily's top tip, what would it be?
I would say the person you're supporting best, probably. You may live in a very small town and they want to move to a big city. And if that's what they want to do and it feels right for them and you as a family, then absolutely encourage them to do so. But do also have conversations. Are they someone that likes that they live in a small city currently and that's the kind of environment they would thrive in? So perhaps prioritise your visits around what would suit them best, and kind of have those conversations before you sort of drag yourself around the whole of the UK, looking at places that immediately might not fit their priorities.
Love it. Nice one. Thanks very much indeed, team.
Much.
Lovely to have you both on. Simon, Emily, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to you for listening or watching as well. Don't forget, a reminder, if you want to find out a little bit more about this topic, there is a Culture Shocks episode available for you in the UCAS International podcast feed. Loads more available via ucas.com/international as well. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll speak soon.